a small town, nestled quietly among misty mountains, lived a girl named Aiko. She wasn't the fastest runner, or the sharpest student, or the most gifted artist. On the surface, she was just quiet. But deep inside Aiko, there was a fire. A silent, stubborn flame that most people simply never saw. When she announced her ambition to join the town's athletic team and compete in the upcoming national race, the idea was met with open disbelief and even laughter. You? They'd scoff during practice. You can barely finish a single lap with the rest of us? Even her teacher, meaning well, gently suggested she pick something a little easier, something more suited to her. But Aiko held on to the words her late father had shared with her, a mantra that echoed in her heart. Talent is given by chance. Strength is built by choice. This was the fuel for her fire. So her solitary journey began. Every single morning, before the sun even thought about rising, Aiko was out on the cold, empty tracks. Every evening, long after everyone else had packed up and gone home, she was still there, pushing her body to its limits. The laughter didn't stop, but it started to fade into the background, replaced by the sound of her own ragged breathing and the steady rhythm of her feet on the ground. One evening, a fierce storm rolled in from the mountains. The wind howled, and rain lashed down in blinding sheets. Aiko, completely exhausted, slipped on the wet track and fell hard. Her knee was bleeding, and as she lay there in the mud, the cold rain mixing with her hot tears, the doubts came crashing in with the force of a tidal wave. Maybe they're right, she thought, her voice a broken whisper. Maybe I'm just not enough? Her spirit felt utterly crushed. But then, through the rain, she saw it. A small flickering lantern at a nearby shrine. The wind tried to snuff it out again and again, but the tiny flame held on, dancing defiantly in the storm. A thought sparked in her mind. If that little light can survive, then so can I. She pushed herself up, ignoring the sharp pain. From that night on, something fundamental changed. She was no longer running to prove them wrong. She was running to prove herself right. The day of the national race finally arrived. The stadium was a roaring sea of faces and noise. The pressure was immense, a physical weight on her shoulders. As she stood at the starting line, the old whispers of doubt returned with a vengeance. "You don't belong here," they hissed in her mind. The starting gun fired and the race began in a blur of motion. Aiko ran, her lungs burning, her legs aching with a familiar fire. She wasn't leading, not by a long shot. With every lap, the voices grew louder, tempting her to slow down, to just give up. But then she remembered the storm, the fall, and the little lantern that refused to go out. In the final, grueling lap, she wasn't racing against the other runners. She was racing against the girl who had cried in the rain, the girl who had almost quit. She pushed harder, digging deep into a reserve of strength she never knew she possessed. Aiko crossed the finish line. She hadn't come in first or even second. She had finished third. But as she looked up, gasping for air, a strange thing happened. The entire stadium was on its feet, giving her a standing ovation. The thunderous applause wasn't just for the winner, it was for the girl who refused to give up. Her coach came to her, his eyes filled with a new kind of respect. "You built that strength yourself," he said, his voice full of genuine pride. In that moment, holding the simple bronze medal, Aiko didn't feel the sting of not winning gold. She felt growth. She understood that the journey, the struggle, the simple refusal to quit was the real victory. The story of Aiko teaches us something powerful. You don't need to be the most talented. You don't need to have the strongest start. You just need to refuse to quit. Because storms don't break the fire inside you. they reveal it.